Hey gardeners, Amy here with Garden Up. Today I want to talk about English ivy or Hedera helix. English ivy. It's a beautiful ornamental plant that was brought over from Europe and has invaded a lot of places here in the U.S. It is gorgeous. I'm not going to deny that. It covers walls really beautifully, but it does tend to take over and it can damage a lot of walls and surfaces, especially masonry and brickwork and stucco. We have begun this project today to remove it. And so first I want to talk about how to identify it, then I'll talk about how to control and eradicate it. Hedera helix is a species of flowering plant in the family Araliaceae. It is native to most of Europe and parts of Western Asia. Ivy is a clinging evergreen vine that grows on tree trunks, walls and fences, waste spaces, and wild habitats. Ivy is popular as an ornamental plant, but it has escaped cultivation in many areas and either naturalized or even become invasive, so check your state's regulations as far as if you should be planting it or not. Hedera helix is an evergreen climbing plant that can grow up to 100 feet high where suitable surfaces are available, and also growing as a ground cover if there are no vertical surfaces. It climbs by means of aerial rootlets with matted pads which cling strongly to the substrate. The ability to climb on surfaces varies with the plant's variety and other factors. Hedera helix prefers non-reflective, darker, and rough surfaces with near-neutral pH. It generally thrives in a wide range of soil pH, with 6.5 being ideal. It prefers moist, shady locations and avoids exposure to direct sunlight, the latter promoting drying out in the winter. The leaves are alternate, 2 to 4 inches long, with a petiole usually less than an inch. They are of two types, with palmately 5-lobed juvenile leaves on creeping and climbing stems, and unlobed cordate adult leaves on fertile flowering stems exposed to full sun, usually high in the crowns of the trees or the top of rock faces. The plant literally has two types of leaves on the same plant, which can really throw you if you don't know what you're looking at. The flowers are produced from late summer until late autumn. The clusters of flowers are in the shape of an umbel. They kind of look like fireworks, and they're really kind of cool. They're usually 3 to 5 centimeters in diameter, so up to about 2 inches, greenish yellow, and very rich in nectar, an important late autumn food source for bees and other insects. The fruit are purple, black to orange-yellow berries, about 1/4 inch in diameter, ripening in late winter, and are an important food source for many birds. Now, when I say an important food source for bees and birds, I'm talking about in its native habitat, not so much an important food source for our native bees and birds here in the United States. And that's how it escapes cultivation, by the way. Each berry has 1 to 5 seeds. The birds eat it, and then they disperse the seeds with a nice healthy dose of fertilizer in the forests, in the woodlands, and that is how ivy has escaped cultivation and ended up invading our forests in the United States. Ivy is widely cultivated as an ornamental plant. Within its native range, the species is greatly valued for attracting wildlife. The flowers are visited by over 70 species of nectar-feeding insects, and the berries are eaten by at least 16 species of birds. The foliage provides dense evergreen shelter. In Europe, it is frequently planted to cover walls, and the Bavarian government recommends growing it on buildings for its ability to cool the interior in summer, while providing insulation in winter, as well as protecting the covered building from soil moisture, temperature fluctuations, and direct exposure to heavy weather. Further uses include weed suppression in plantings, beautifying unsightly facades, and providing additional green by growing on tree trunks. However, ivy can be problematic. It is a fast-growing, self-clinging climber that is capable of causing damage to brickwork, guttering, etc., and hiding potentially serious structural faults, as well as harboring unwelcome pests. Careful planning and placement are essential. Ivy berries are somewhat poisonous to humans, but extracts from ivy leaves are part of current cough medicines. I'm not really qualified to talk about medicinal uses and whatnot, but ivy does have some, so if you're interested in that, definitely do some further research. Like other exotic species, ivy has predominantly been spread by human action. Hedera helix is labeled as an invasive species in several parts of the world. In Australia, it's considered a noxious weed across southern and especially southeastern Australia, and local councils provide free information and limited services for removal. In some councils, it is illegal to sell the plant. It is a weed in the Australian state of Victoria. In Canada, although it's a popular holiday decoration, Hedera helix is invasive and is a pathogen alternate host in British Columbia. In New Zealand, Hedera helix has been listed as an environmental weed by the Department of Conservation since 1990. And in the United States, Hedera helix is considered weedy or invasive in a number of regions and is on the official noxious weed lists in Oregon and Washington. In the state of Oregon, its sale or import is banned. Like other invasive vines such as kudzu, Hedera helix can grow to choke out other plants and create ivy deserts. State and county-sponsored efforts are encouraging the destruction of ivy in forests of the Pacific Northwest and the southern United States. Ivy can easily escape from cultivated gardens and invade nearby parks, forests, and other natural areas via squirrels and birds. Once ivy is established, it is very difficult to control or eradicate. If left untreated, it will crowd out other ground cover plants and can choke out and kill shrubs and overstory trees. The tested and successful methods of control are mechanical removal and chemical applications. Ivy can climb into the canopy of young or small trees in such density that the trees fall over from the weight, a problem that does not normally occur in its native range. In its mature form, dense ivy can destroy habitat for native wildlife and creates large sections of solid ivy where no other plants can develop. It is also thought to be a reservoir for leaf-scorch bacteria. However, the UK Woodland Trust considers that it does not damage trees and hence does not require removal. Ivy can also block the sun from the trees that need it for photosynthesis. So how do you know when ivy is a problem? Well, depends on your goal. If you want it to be a thick ground cover that keeps down weeds and prevents literally anything else from growing, and that's your goal and that's what it's doing, that's probably okay. But understand that you are risking spreading it to other woodland areas where you would never know. You would have no idea if a berry from your ivy was carried by a bird and dropped in the forest a mile or two away from your house. You don't know. So I always recommend removing it, and I love when I have the chance to do so. This is a really fantastically thick growth of it. I'm stoked about today. What's going on here is we have stucco. The little rootlets are sticking to it really, really well. I don't want to just yank it off. I'm going to pull the wall apart. So we're going to have to be really careful about how we remove this so that we don't damage the house. Also, I have no idea where this ivy is coming from. So task number 1 is actually to grab it and just cut it all out until we find the base source of the plant. Because these vines will root anywhere they touch the ground, but that's not, the root where it came from. So we have to figure out where it came from in order to get it gone. And that root system is going to be massive. So our plan of attack today is first just cutting all the vines out, throwing them on the tarp, getting them out of the way. And once we find the crown of the plant, we will attack it with some shovels. We are not going to actually remove it from the walls. What we're going to do is cut a gaff of the stems so that the top growth is no longer attached to its root system, which will eventually cause it to die. At that point, the rootlets should get brittle and be easier to take off. So it's a long game. It's not going to happen instantly. It's going to happen over the course of a few months. Also, any roots that we miss will likely grow new shoots. So that's also something we have to be aware of. So removal with ivy is simple in theory, difficult to actually achieve. Tools you're going to need. You're going to want gloves because a lot of critters hide in here. And quite frankly, I love spiders, but not when they crawl on me. You're going to need pruning shears or loppers or something to cut with. And I recommend a mask. And I recommend masks because there's something about ivy that just attracts dust and it holds it, and whenever you get in here to work with it, it'll get all up in your face, and even if you don't have any allergies, you will be sneezing and you'll have a hard time breathing and you won't be able to see, and it's just terrible. So I recommend putting on a mask, and thank goodness we just came out of COVID and we all have them. So here we go. Step 1 is to just start grabbing and cutting. The goal of this is to just get most of the biomass out of the way so that you can see the ground and you can see what you're doing. So just grab as much ivy as you can, throw it on a tarp. Now, right here, it's completely overgrown, this rhododendron. Like, there is a rhodie in here. There's also a oak volunteer, so we'll take that out too. But we need to find the base of the rhodie so that we can keep it from getting choked out. So here's the stem all the way over here. I'm going to take the ivy back. I found the base of the rhodie. I think that might just be a stem, actually. This might be coming from that plant over there. That's just the stem that rooted. But all these vines are all ivied, and so we've got to cut all that out of the way. Anything that's left will absolutely reroot and regrow and start over a whole new plant. So this is a prime example of what ivy can do to small trees. It is growing up the side of the tree, sticking with its little rootlets, but it's so tight that it's actually girdling the tree in some places, and it's weighing down the top of the tree so much that they're going to start competing for light in a few minutes. They're going to start competing for light, and it's weighing down the top of the tree, so the branches are going to start to get heavy and break, and they may even start competing for light if the ivy grows over the leaves of the tree. So how we want to deal with this, how you don't want to deal with it, is just grab it and start pulling it off, because what you can do in some cases is actually start to tear the bark off as well. The best way to deal with ivy on a tree is to come down to the base and start cutting at least about a foot of a gap between the ivy branches, so that this ivy at the top is no longer attached to its roots and it dies. Then it will start to fall away or be much easier to pull away. Like this one, this is dead, so it's coming right off. That's our goal for the rest of this, so that it hopefully comes off a little easier. You do want to pull away this first section, but only so you can see what you're doing. That's why I'm actually taking it off, so that I know I'm not missing any branches of ivy in the process. Anywhere that an ivy vine touches the ground, if there's a node, it has the potential to grow roots. And that's one of the ways it gets so long. These are true roots, not rootlets. Those are absorbing nutrients out of the soil, and they're also anchoring it, and they're allowing it to keep growing longer. So that's how you uncover ivy from a tree to where you start to be able to find the tree. I've seen situations where it's much worse than this. Ivy completely coating it to the point where you can't even see the tree anymore. But the treatment is the same. Remove this much of the ivy so that all this dies, and then it'll be easier to pull down later without damaging the tree. The dust in here is really bad, so again, mask on. Even with the mask, I'm coughing and sneezing. These are all branches that grew up and are now falling down, but I have to get them out of the way in order to see what I'm working on. So I still have some work to do here. I've got to get these big ones out. But for the sake of run time on this video, I'm going to stop and just say this is what the goal is. I removed a little more than a foot. It's not like the foot is the magic number. It's just it needs to be at least a foot. This was easier for me to cut up here. So I'm actually removing like about 2 feet. It's probably going to be more like 2.5, almost 3 feet by the time we get all this out of the way and get it removed. I think if we follow this vine here down, we're probably going to find the actual roots right about here. So what we've been doing is any place where we think there might be the main crown of the plant is we've been sticking flags so that we know to dig there later after we get all this cleaned up. There's some wires, I don't know if they're cable or what, but we definitely don't want to cut those or pull the ivy in such a way that we pull them off.
They look like they like the house is built.
Yeah.
They blend in really well.
They're painted. Painted the same color.
Well, and then it like matches the color of the wood of the ivy almost.
This is very stuck. I'm not going to try to remove this right now. I'm going to cut around it and wait for it to die. So here's the chimney of this house, the outside brickwork. There was ivy growing all up in here. The homeowner and her daughter cut about a foot gap between the top growth and the roots. So now all of this is dead. We're hoping we can just take it off, but it's still probably going to fight us a bit. We're going to have to take it off in little pieces and make sure that none of the brick moves and nothing, comes crashing down on our heads. In fact, I'm not going to do this today because it didn't occur to me until now to bring hard hats. So we're going to come back and do this another day with hard hats just in case a brick falls on us. But this is what happens when you cut the bottom from the top, is the top growth does die. And this is what you want if you're trying to get rid of it. We're still going to have to get down there and dig out the root, but at least this part is manageable now. You can see how the dead stuff right here is kind of popping right off. But if I were to pull on something that was alive, it would pull the stucco off with it. So we're not going to do that. Just the dead. Little pieces at a time. Take your time. And definitely keep your mask on. This is so dusty. Ugh. Maybe eye protection too would be a good idea. Thicker vines like these, you're going to need either loppers or a saw. Hand pruners are not going to get through this. So yes, it is taking some of the paint off of the house right here. So it's been several weeks. My crew has taken care of most of the ivy since I haven't been able to get back here with the camera. But we are now just dealing with root balls at this point. The top ivy is all gone, which means most of the dust is gone, so the need for the masks is hopefully gone. And we just have to dig up the roots. And they tell me they've been mostly just using their hands to pull it, maybe a shovel, and a pruner or two. So let's see what we're dealing with down here. So there's a root here, here, and then it continues that way. So this is what the root looks like, and we cut it here, probably 2, 3, 4 weeks ago. I don't remember exactly because there was a lot, but look how quick it's trying to come back. And this is one of the reasons ivy is so hard to control, is even if you cut off the top, it's going to come back from the roots. This is new growth, this is new growth, and I mean, there's plenty of points where more growth would come if it wanted to. So, and there's a ton of other like little feeder roots all over the place, but these nodes, this meristematic tissue is what you're after. And you have to remove the whole thing in order to get all of that. So that was one root. The other thing to note is it had split many times. It was going this way, it was going this way, it went this way, here, this one, and then it went up and around and down over here. Point is, you're going to have a lot of roots to chase, because you've got to get all of them. So that might take a few visits before we get it all. So this root has a slightly different bark and color and texture than the ivy roots. I think this one is off of the tree. So you want to just be aware of what's around and what different things look like, because I don't actually want to dig up this one. So I'll just cut this around it, and then we can keep going. Still broken, but that was by another shovel over here somewhere. Yeah, it's going straight down. It's got some kind of the foundation or footing for this pillar is what I keep hitting. And I don't have a lot of space to move because of the tree. Wanted to demonstrate how hard these roots are to get, and this is exactly what I was after. Yeah, so what I'm digging through right now is clay, and that's part of the problem I'm having. This is probably where the ivy was originally planted. Somebody thought it would look pretty here, and so they planted it at the base to climb up the pillar, and not realizing the mess they would release, they would eventually eat the house. So I'm not going to be able to get this whole root out. It grows too deep. There's not enough space for me to work. I don't want to mess with the foundation. Like, there's a million reasons I'm not going to get this whole thing out. So rather than fight and still have it come back anyway, I'm going to do my box trick. I'm going to cut off the root a little bit higher than I dug, and I'm going to just take a box. Any cardboard box will work, but something, small is my preference, because I only just want to cover it. Still need to go a little farther down to make this work, because I need to completely cover the box with at least a few inches of soil. And yeah, I'm going to double it up. We found just enough cardboard to double it like that. So I'm going to dig a little bit more around the edges. I've done this successfully on several plants before. Basically, my theory, that I have not proved or disproved yet, but there you go, is that when this regrows, the box will be on top of it. So it'll try to grow top growth, not roots. And it'll grow the top growth, but it won't be able to get out of the box. It'll hit the box, and it won't be able to get out. By the time the box decomposes, the plant will hopefully be dead. The roots should be starved. But that's the part that I'm not sure of. If you've got something that's really long-lived, you might need to put your box in again. Make this smaller. Sometimes I do 2 boxes just to make it last a little longer if I'm doing, again, a plant that's really tenacious and long-lived. I'll put 2 boxes on top of each other. It's still not as deep as I like it, but I can't get much deeper, so this will be a good opportunity for us to check on it in a couple years. I don't think I'm going to wait a couple years. Check on it next spring to see what happens. There. Hopefully nobody will dig that up between now and whenever I dig it up. And I can check on it in a couple years. Make sure to follow, subscribe, and keep an eye on the channel so you can see the follow-up whenever I post it. Thanks so much for watching this video, everybody. If you liked it, make sure to tell me by hitting the like button if you learned something new. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below. And if you haven't already done so, remember to subscribe so you get more gardening content in your video feed every week. Thanks so much, guys. I'll see you in the garden.